I'm so glad you all joined us this evening. I'm Regina Dighton, and I'm the program manager of the Child Advocacy Center at St. Francis Hospital. To summarize that, we provide services for child victims of sexual abuse. We're here right now to talk about sexual abuse and how it affects people of different backgrounds and different cultures. I'm sitting here with 3 survivors in addition to myself and Dr. Barris Malcolm from the University of Connecticut School of Social Work. Larissa's story takes place in Jamaica. Eddie's story takes place in Hartford, Connecticut, as does Leslie's story. Mine took place in Trenton, New Jersey. While the script itself has much in common, sometimes it is the cultural nuances that people hide behind to excuse the abuse of children. Therefore, it's important to talk about the role of culture, which when we come to face it are habits. In all cultures, we have some not so good habits, and we have some good ones. I think it's about looking at, as grown people, we don't have to do everything our grandparents and grandparents did or believe as they believe. We can decide, I'm going to put that part aside because that part came out of oppression. That part came out of sexism. That part came as a result of having been colonized, having been enslaved, having been dominated. I'm going to put that part away, but I'm going to keep these other parts that serve as strengths to sustain us, to build us, and improve us. So let's talk. Don't turn away because of the topic. People ask me very often, Regina, how do you do that job? I couldn't do that job. I'm quick to answer. I get to see children get better. Mm-hmm. That's why I keep going back to work every day and have for the past 11 years. With you right now are people who've gotten better. Larissa, please share with us.
Hi, my name is Larissarone, and as Regina mentioned, I am a survivor of child sexual abuse. My story began in Jamaica, began and ended there. I am the victim of my grandmother's husband, or I was the victim of my grandmother's husband. This man actually raped my mother, whom she was 6 until she was 16 years old. He raped my grandmother, but she married him, and he raped me. My abuse began when I was 5 years old and progressed, got worse over the years, and he started raping me at 11, and that continued until I was 16 years old. What happened in my life as a result of that, the trauma that I experienced as a child and living in a family that believed that this was the family's business and we had to keep it in the family. I was told that I should not speak about this, and for years, even though I tried to talk about it because it was affecting me psychologically, it was affecting every area of my life, I could not talk about it because I was getting shunned by my family. However, in 2013, my cousins, 2 of my younger cousins, who are also victim of this man, decided to speak. The news got to me. They told their parents, and one cousin actually told me what had happened to her. I was the first person she spoke to. And as a result of my finding that out, I slipped into depression. As a result of that, I decided that I needed to press charges against this man because it had to stop. Somehow, somewhere, he had to take responsibility for what he did. However, the case flew to Jamaica for 3.5 years, going back and forth to court. And the case ended in 2016. From there, I launched Journey to Free, which is a campaign that we're doing that helps victims of child sexual abuse. I am from Jamaica, and majority of the work I do is in Jamaica because I found out during the years I was going back and forth there, the parish that I was born and raised in, they have the worst rate of incest and child sexual abuse. So the work that I do there now spans from hosting campaigns, facilitating workshops and conferences. We're getting ready to do our first annual girls retreat and several different things that we do. Here, I met Regina, a beautiful Regina, and I am so thankful to her and for all that she has done and for taking me under her wings, which is ironically one of the programs that the Child Advocacy Center at St. Francis, that's one of the programs that they do. It's called Under Her Wings. And Regina has been, oh my God, I don't know the word to describe her at this point, but her assistance in helping me and to do so many things that I could not have done on my own. Again, I'm new at this, but to know that I am not alone and I have persons that I can look to and can take me under her wing and give me some guidance, and not just for Journey to Free, but in my own personal journey. She has gone through this and she knows some of the horrors that we have to deal with. And so has Leslie, so has Eddie, and we know as adults living our day-to-day lives and knowing the traumas that you have to deal with. And so at this point, we're doing this conference and we're trying to get families to come out and to have this conversation because we don't speak about this. And as a result of us not talking, this is what happens. What happened in my family, us not speaking, we swept it under the carpet. It continued, and it continued for generations. So I would encourage each and every person to come out. If you're hearing this, you're watching this, invite someone. Let's have this conversation because it needs to be had.
I just want to say thank you, and that every important change, every evolution, every revolution began with a conversation. It is possible to reduce, I believe it has to be possible to eliminate sexual violence. And in this case, we're starting with talking about sexual violence against children, but all sexual violence. And though that seems like a wild and crazy idea, I want to remind us that the abolition of slavery was started with a conversation that seemed wild and crazy. The emancipation of Jamaica from Great Britain started as a conversation. And always the pushback, the oppressor's response to whoever started the conversation follows a few things in common. One of the things they say is it is against God. And some of us heard many of these things when we tried to disclose being abused, that somehow God wanted us to be quiet and that we were to blame. Something was wrong with us.
Oh, we did.
People used the Bible to say God intended the dark people to be the servants and slaves of white men. They said that people of color were just, naturally inferior, not as worthy. Well, it might be in different words, but we're being told the same thing about children, the same thing about women. So encouraging you once again to come out is change starts with a conversation. Leslie, talk to us, please.
Yes, thank you, Regina, for the opportunity. My name is Leslie Mansell, and I am a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. I was incest. Yeah, it's a verb. I was incest by a close family member for a number of years while I was a young child. And another family member saved my life by telling me, you don't have to do that anymore. And I was so grateful. to hear that. And it stopped at that point. I guess I got the words to say no, got the encouragement to say no. But the sexual abuse that happened to me as a child has affected me my whole life. It has affected the way I deal or don't deal with men. It's been tough with relationships with men. Men are my brothers, or else they just don't exist. And not quite that extreme, but almost, you know. Yeah, it's a personal thing, but it's been hard to really have a good, solid relationship, to have that trust in men. And so even though these things happen to us as children, it can affect someone for a lifetime.
Yes.
And it took me years to, I guess, to find myself, to get past it. First I hid it under a rock for decades, did not deal with it, had very low self-esteem. Everybody was better than me, prettier than me, smarter than me. I was not worthy. And then I guess one day, you know, the Lord just came to me and just gave me the encouragement and just told me, you're okay. And from there, I just began to, I called it self-improvement. The Self-Betterment Society was my little nickname for it. And I just slowly over the years got more stronger. Thank you, Larissa. Stronger, more firm in myself, and just grew and begin to come out of my shell. And now I sing and I perform, and you know, and I love doing that. One day I got an email just out of the clear blue sky, and the email was from Regina. She doesn't even remember how, she doesn't know how I got the email. I don't know how I got the email. But it was to come together to help children that had been sexually abused. It was like the community arm, the outreach arm. And it was a way for me as an adult to not only deal with I don't want to say the demons, but to deal with what happened to me, but also to be effective in helping those that go after me. Yes. So from the second meeting, I was involved with Under Our Wings, even before it was called Under Our Wings. So I'm very grateful to be able to help others, particularly our youngins, you know, to find their voice and to find their strength. And even though this happened to you, you're still a good person, and you have worth, and there are things, good things that you can do out here in this world. So I'm grateful that you have this program, Regina, and you know, I'm sticking with it.
I'm so grateful that you have been with it, that you stay with it. Yeah, child sexual abuse, violence toward a child tells that child that they are not lovable.
Yeah.
That's our, you know, our path, our journey. A big objective in that is to come to know, not just think or believe, but to know that we are lovable.
We're worth it.
That we're worth it. Someone, you know, to see ourselves sometimes as others see us.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a problem.
Others will see us, they'll see beauty, they'll see worth, they see intelligence, they see giving, and we're looking over our shoulder, what are they talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
And so, but as we do this together, I'm grateful for every person who treated and treats me as if I am lovable and worthy. I come to see myself in that reflection when I look in their eyes, till now I can look and see that person. Yep. Eddie, you want to share with us, please?
I'm Maddie, and I'm from Hartford, Connecticut. I'm residing in Weathersfield, Connecticut, and I'm 45 years old. And I want to say that my sexually molested happened at a facility, and it's so sad because when it happened, I was 8 years old and I was supposed to go there to get better, and people were supposed to watch over me, and it happened a couple of times. And I never spoke about it. And I remember leaving that facility, going to another facility, so it's like it erased out of my mind. But by the time I came out another facility, I remember at the age of 12, I was already drinking. I was already in the drugs and you know, snorting cocaine. I was fully bloated, acted in the community. And I had the best mother. My father wasn't around, and I loved my father. He was, you know, come to find out after all these years, because I also serve a fellowship, and I've been clean since 2007. And I remember in 2007 when I got clean, for the first time something happened where I looked in the mirror and I saw my daughter on the 3rd floor suffering, but I didn't know what she was suffering from. And since then I got clean, and then 2009 I had to relive it. I got called by DCF in Massachusetts, and my daughter has been victimized by 2 people, by the boyfriend and the grandfather of the mother. And so I had to relive all this, and you know, something happened where a DCF worker sent me to Advocate Children in St. Francis Hospital, not knowing, I just knew that my daughter needed help, not knowing that I needed help. And I was reliving this whole demon. And I remember going there, and I remember the first therapist, she was like, okay, she was like a parent to me, like, okay, it's gonna be all right. And then I remember the second one, I started doing some work. And the third one, I went through 3 therapists, not because of me, it's because people change jobs, people move out of state, but they always put somebody good for me. And I kept going to the center. And I also do a 12-step fellowship, and I also take care of my mom. My daughter's resigned with me. She's 15 right now. She's at a facility getting some special treatment that she needs, but she will be coming home soon, and she suffered from that. I see a lot of behaviors of her, and I see my behaviors. So I know when those behaviors are there, and I can help her with her. You know, like we see professional. I still see a therapist because I was told when I thought that I didn't need a therapist no more, somebody told me, I think you should see a therapist for your own health, for your own good. And you know what, like that person was right. Another therapist told me that. And I'm grateful for the other therapist that told me that it was my daughter's therapist. And like, I'm so grateful for this facility because like, I wouldn't know where I'd be at today if I didn't get the help, if I didn't treat it, and it's a continued treating. That's why it's important, men's, because, you know, like us men's, we don't want to talk about that. We don't want nobody to know. It's painful, it's shameful what other people are going to think. But you know what? I always say it wasn't my fault.
Yes.
Right.
I was a kid. Yeah. I was taken. You know, I was taken. I'm took advantage of. And nobody have to go through that. We don't have to put nothing under the rug. We don't have to keep nothing quiet. We got to come out with our stuff. It took a lot of years because I heard another guy sharing the fellowship, and that's what made me talk about it just a little bit. But then when it happened with my daughter, I had to get some professional help. Somebody knew that I had to get some professional help so I can be able to deal with me, so I can be able to deal with my daughter and recognize the signs. And I do a very good job. Like all the providers that I have worked with, they go like this to me, thumbs up. And I continue this process. When I don't want to show up, I fight it, I come, because I want to help others just like people help me. I want to continue this journey, and all day, every day, I'm here, and I'm Eddie. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you so much, Eddie. I mean, you just touched my heart every time you open your mouth. And I'm so glad you talked about therapy. That's an important part of my process, my healing. And, you know, as communities, my background is African American, but within one thing we have in common, more than one, but the African American community, in the Afro-Caribbean community, and in the Latin American community is we don't go to therapy because we ain't crazy.
Right.
Well, I say to those people politely, yeah, you are. When your life is unmanageable and you're unhappy, and if only everybody else would listen to you and do what you say and do something different, maybe you could use a little therapy, you know? you're not living in line with what you really want, what you really believe, even sometimes. You know, people will have outbursts, you made me mad, you made me hit you, you made me curse you out, you know, and then on Sunday we're sitting there clapping and shouting. I want to give this analogy, and then we're going to break, and I'm going to invite Dr. Malcolm to speak to us as a professor of social work, and just give us some feedback on what he's heard, and, you know, maybe a few lessons for our community in terms of considering getting help, how we can be helped, how we can help one another. I've often said that if trauma showed up as a big, bulging blister on your big toe in the summertime, when you just bought some super fine sandals and your toe is black, green, brown, stuff is oozing out of it, you would be running to the therapist till your toe is pretty again. Now, doesn't come out in your toe, but I bet that toe was just messed up for whatever reason. People would run from podiatrist to podiatrist until it was pretty again. You would not go to one podiatrist who didn't fix the problem. Say, I don't believe in podiatry. I'm not doing that. If trauma came out on the face as a huge pimple for each time one was triggered, we'd be running to the dermatologist and wouldn't stop with one, or if one prescription didn't work, we'd want the other. And yeah, we would take the pills if they said the pills will do it. Trauma changes the brain physically.
It does.
Brain is a physical thing, and it looks different
Sure does.
when it's traumatized.
Sure does.
For some people, it'll be about affecting their sleep. Others, their ability to concentrate. You might think you can't do math, or you can't do those kind of left brain functions, and be surprised when your brain heals that you can sit still for half an hour,
Absolutely.
and that you can figure out that problem, and that you can help from exploding and then feeling embarrassed later. And so with that, I want to say, yeah, unfortunately we can't see our brains, but I'm reminded of a Buddhist scripture that says we can't see our eyebrows because they're too close, nor can we see heaven in the distance. But don't doubt the reality of either one. The eyebrow analogy tells us that we need one another as people. I can see your eyebrows, you can see mine. I need honest, trusting relationships with people who can tell me what they see that I don't, and I owe them that same truth. And so many of us who have survived and not yet moving to thriving are living with secrets and lies. I guess that would be the few things. If you're living with a lot of secrets and lies, you could use some therapy. Thank you. I'd say that with love in my heart for you. Give you the mic.
I have my
Oh, you got a mic. Oh, all right.
Yes.
Now you can cut out that little mess I said in the middle. Dr. Malcolm.
I'm truly honored, to be in your company, all of you, this evening. And I feel odd because I don't know that I can I don't have a story of being abused sexually. Although if I think back deep enough and hard enough and younger, something might have happened, which I'm not too clear about yet. But I remember something happening when I was maybe 3 or so. but I haven't processed it yet properly. And as you were sitting here, I'm saying, wow, I wonder. But and I'm not saying that to by any way diminish your story or so on. I'm really, really honored that you, and I think everyone who's listening, should be touched and moved by the fact that you have been willing to share your story. Because very often, as you said, shame is what's there, and people hide away, and that's one of the reasons why, as you said, Regina, people in the Afro-Caribbean, African, Latino cultures, sort of, there's a shame that we have. Of course, mental illness is also another thing that people are ashamed of, and therefore they don't want to get help. But you asked me to speak on this matter from a perspective of a social worker, and social work is a very dynamic profession, as you know. There's a macro section of social work which deals with the policies and the community and the administration. And what that does is it helps to provide the resources. It helps to generate awareness and advocacy about issues such as these, and to drum up support for action and for new laws to put in place, both to end the perpetration of this violence against human beings, and also to provide services to treat and to give therapy and to give support. The macro does that. The micro part of social work, which is referred to as a clinical part of it, deals with the individual and families to a certain extent and small groups, but it deals with the individuals. It pains me to say that as social workers, we deal with the perpetrators as well as the victims. I hate to use that word victims, but for lack of a better word right now. So we have to find ways to have people who think it's okay to go about and raping, abusing individuals to understand that it is wrong. And to give them the therapy too and the help to find healing. And although it is believed that particularly people who engage in sexual abuse with children and so on are incurable, that it lives with them forever. And it's very difficult, almost impossible, to get a child sexual abuser to stop. And that's why we have signs, we have a list of people who have been accused so that they don't live in certain areas. We know who they are and so on, because it's there. And social workers have to work with them as well.
If I could interrupt for just a little bit.
Yeah.
That's so very complicated. I was
It's
talking about for a long time.
Yeah.
But a couple things couple facts I did want to point out, because it gives me time to do a commercial for a new program at the Child Advocacy Center. There are children who have sexual behavior problems. We don't call them perpetrators or anything as children. Some of them are doing what's called sexually reactive behaviors.
Right.
Something's been done to them. They're doing something. Others are acting out of other traumas.
Yeah.
However, the data over a long time shows that if you do the proper therapy with the child while they are young, the rates of success are through the roof.
Yes.
They range from 93
Absolutely.
to 97% that they will not repeat those inappropriate behaviors. And I'm so happy to say that the Child Advocacy Center at St. Francis is the recipient of an award from the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention to provide therapy to those children, to their parents, and to the victims of those children. We're able to offer a really comprehensive menu of services, and all of those services are free of charge.
Wonderful.
I
Wonderful.
was motivated to go after this grant opportunity and so excited about it because I was painfully aware
Mhm.
that for children whose parents do not have the economic resources to take them to a private specialist, because
Right.
you need a specialist.
Yes.
Those specialist rates usually start at about $150 an hour,
Right.
and the few of them that were in Connecticut were not accepting any insurance. It's cash on the table,
Wow.
leading to this great disparity of who could get help.
Absolutely.
And what was happening to then the children of working class and the poor
Mhm.
is that they could continue to go further into misbehavior, into dysfunction,
Mhm. Right. Right.
until they were old enough to be handled by juvenile court. At that point,
Right.
they could be offered some help. But they're that much sicker
Too
by
much
the
fur-
time they
too
get
far.
there.
Absolutely.
And then we're talking about, for many, a pathway to jail.
Right.
So I'm so happy to just say that we've brought a resource to Greater Hartford,
Wonderful.
you know, that can deal with that. On the other hand, with adults, the argument is out there, you can help them, no, you can't help
Yeah.
them. But a few things we do know is that the more victims
Mhm.
a perpetrator has, the less likely he or she is to stop.
Yeah.
Once again,
that's
that's-
it.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
That's the key.
But I'm sorry to interrupt.
No,
you,
no,
but I
that's
just
fine.
wanted
That's
to-
fine. And because I say what the research sort of says, but the and I don't want to say in my former life because that's not true. I am an ordained Baptist minister, and I'm a person of faith, and I know that God can change people,
Amen.
no matter
Amen.
what. God can change
Amen.
people. But I really want to do sort of really rush to the second part of what I really want to say in terms of what social work does for the individuals who have experienced this very, very, very violent and severe trauma. Is that, as Eddie and others of you have said, sorry, we provide resources. We provide resources, as you have found, for people to be able to, first of all, acknowledge, even become aware of what has happened to them. And that sometimes takes a long time. You know, it takes a very skilled person to help individuals, because you don't want to re-traumatize them. You know, you want them to become aware and how to cope with it and to find themselves again and to become human almost again and so on. And that's what social workers do, and people also should also not acknowledge psychologists who are also in the healing profession, and medical doctors help to do this. And that's the reason why I am excited about being involved in this conference, to be able to talk about what we can do as social workers. Lots of things have happened in the last 12 months or so. The Me Too movement is out there, and lots of people are talking about this. And I'm happy for that because it has certainly provided a platform.
Yes.
I also realized, though, that that platform existed long before
Yes.
and has been there. And I might not say everything I want to say about it, because there is always this feeling that until something really begins to affect a certain complexion of people,
Yes.
it tends not to be taken very seriously. But we're part of that. We're caught up in it. And men are put on notice, myself included, that we cannot behave
Yes.
the way we used to behave in the past. And I'm saying so because I'm very concerned. The Pope today, as a matter of fact, I heard on public radio coming here, the Pope is going to go to, I believe it's Chile or Argentina, to apologize to victims of sexual abuse by priests who he had sort of thought that they weren't being authentic. And he was rudely awakened by research and discoveries. And he is inviting them to come to the Vatican, where he's going to publicly confess to them and apologize that he made a terrible mistake in not believing them. So something has changed.
Yes.
Your stories have made the change. And the conference, as you say, Regina, is for people to come and to talk. I know people are going to be afraid. I don't want to talk about my grandfather. I don't want to embarrass the family and so on. But at least, as you said, Regina, we need to begin to talk. It may take some time to get to the bottom of it. It may take some time to name the person, and that is something that therapists help one to get through over time. But something needs to happen. It needs to stop.
Yes.
It needs to stop.
Yeah.
Can you say
Because every day, as we speak here, thousands upon thousands of boys and girls are being molested
Yeah.
from age 1, 2, and 3 and onwards.
Yes, yes. And I have a major issue with people actually believing, and it's crazy the amount of families that you will hear this nonsense coming out. I don't want to embarrass the family
Exactly.
or
Yeah.
my grandfather, or, and it really peeves me so much because it's the other way around. That is the
Exactly,
reverse.
exactly.
It should be the adults
Exactly.
protecting the children,
Absolutely.
and yet we were asked from such a young age and into adulthood
Right.
to be protecting family. And even when you have the courage to come out and to stand up
Oh, yeah.
and to say this happened, the
They
family,
fight against you.
they go
Yeah.
against
Yeah,
you.
absolutely.
And in ways that I can't even begin to speak, because as Eddie mentioned earlier, some of what he experienced, Leslie experienced, Regina, I experienced my own flesh and blood with
Yeah.
threats, and this is how bad it got. And yet it makes you wonder, where is the mindset? What are they thinking? Because truthfully, you're sitting there as the survivor or the victim, and you are hurting
Right.
Yes.
and hurting for years, to the
Yeah.
point where you have so many children and adults that till this day they're opting to commit suicide to
Right.
get
Yes.
away
Yes.
from the
Yes.
trauma and the hurt.
Absolutely.
And yet you still have family members sitting there
Right.
professing we have to
Right.
hold this together as a family. It's
And that's the same family
total
members who say
nonsense.
they don't need therapy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's obviously some dysfunction going when you will ask a child to protect their
Yeah.
perpetrator.
Yeah.
And how is that protecting
Right.
the family? It's not. It's protecting the perpetrator.
Right.
It's making it possible for him or her to keep abusing
Yes.
more and more and more
And
children.
that's exactly what happened, because the cycle just keeps
Right.
it keeps going, because of course you give them the okay, the feeling that it's okay for me to do this. 'Cause,
Right, right,
you know, we've manipulated the victim so much, no one's going to talk about it. So hey, it's fair game to anyone. I can do this to anyone, and I'm not going to get
Yeah.
caught.
I love the
You know?
motto to Journey to Free, reassign the shame,
Yes.
because victims take in the shame and it makes us sick.
Yeah.
It makes
Oh.
us ashamed of ourselves. It convinces us that we're ugly. It convinces us that there's something just nasty, seductive about our bodies
Yes.
when we're
Yeah.
5 and 6 years old.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're told, "Oh yeah, you were flirting with me."
Yeah.
You know, that's crazy when you hear that, and somebody's talking about a 4-year-old child
Flirting.
that
Yeah.
was trying to come on to them, or just all the other excuses. But yeah, it once again it leads us to believe that somehow we're worthy of abuse
Yes.
and of pain, and that we're not lovable, and we're called upon to protect the person who did it to us. And when our family tells us to be quiet or doesn't believe us, that just underscores that we are this terrible subhuman.
Yeah.
Where did we get this thing from?
And that's exactly what's going on with my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
She feels that way, that she should have not said nothing, because look, I'm not home, my brother's home, and now they mad at me, and now they think of me this way. I mean, she shares this in therapy,
Yes.
and it's so sad. And my heart goes out to my daughter. She knows I love her. I mean, I went all the way to the facility today just to bring her a colada drink
Oh.
and a donut, and that meant a lot for her. She is coming home with me. She just had to get some more unfinished treatment because some stuff had happened, and
You are
I,
the.
I continue this journey, man.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cry because I
I'm
wish
there.
my daddy had been you. I wish you had been my daddy.
God.
You know, I'm
The
so
support.
glad you're there. Absolutely,
The support.
and though maybe not this minute. You know, I've heard it said, it's true, you have to love your children enough to let them hate you sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, because you're the one with the rules and everything. But certainly I know good and well the day will come when you just be nothing but gratitude and thanks. You know, be able to see what she had in a father who's willing to be a mother and a father
Yeah.
and go above and beyond.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's part of why the stories are so important.
Absolutely.
You know, we need more of that. More men need to hear that. And we talk about what happens when you don't deal with something. You know, it twists and turns and cooks and stinks inside and comes out backwards
Absolutely.
in some kind of dysfunctional way. So, for instance, for a father who's never dealt with his own victimization as a child,
Oh, yes.
that is coming out in the way he parents sons and daughters.
Absolutely.
May not be aware of it, but you're not looking at the child going, what's wrong? Another piece when I think about signs and symptoms is that because lay people generally don't know signs and symptoms of trauma, it's not unusual to then find, and I see this a lot in our communities of color, children being punished for exhibiting trauma symptoms.
Yeah.
So
Which they
a
cannot help.
child
Which they
who-
cannot help.
For instance, one that's kind of classic, a child who's potty trained, they've been
Don't
fine, they've
say
been dry,
that.
all
Why
of a
you
sudden
say
they
that?
revert to
Yes.
wetting the bed. That is a classic,
Classic symptom,
you know,
yeah.
something's wrong. I'm not saying they've been sexually abused, but there's probably been some trauma or something's different. At most, sometimes it seems these days, we might go to the doctor and say, is there something wrong with his or her bladder? If the answer is no,
Yeah.
you're lazy, you won't even get up
Yeah.
and pee the bed, and then shame them for doing it,
Right,
Yeah.
spank them for doing it, punish them, whatever, you know, shame, 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 without knowing, this means something wrong. You know, 8, 10-year-old, it goes back to sucking their thumb. Well, yeah, something's wrong when children revert back to a younger age or
Yeah.
want to be around you all the time, become super clingy. Get away from me! Don't you see I have stuff to do? Just get away from me.
And that carries on into adulthood where you do other kinds of behaviors that are negative, like Eddie had mentioned, and I went through the same thing, self-medication.
Yeah.
It was called because I was so beating up myself. I was
Yeah.
so unworthy, so nothing that, you know, I might as well drug out, you know.
Yes.
So it's,
But you know,
these things happen.
even in adulthood, one of the things that I think we really need to speak about as a and we need to do more research in is that persons that have been traumatized, whether it's sexually or not, one of the manifestations is health. Your health is affected.
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
and I'm starting to see like the support group, the Journey to Free support group.
Yes.
There's so many of the women and even the girls within the group that have so many health issues.
Yes.
And I'm just, there was a study done by this doctor that is just recently making its round around where she's actually saying, yes, it's proven that trauma does affect you health-wise. And
Sure.
there's
This
so
is
many
the ACEs
aspects
study, I
to it
think
that
you're
we need
referring to. It's
I think, yes,
adverse
yes.
childhood events.
Yeah.
And it's a long-term study. And it's got higher rates of obesity, smoking, cancer. You just go down the list,
Yeah.
everything that could be
Yes.
wrong with you.
It's there. It's there.
Yes. And then here's a scary thing. When they administer this test of adverse childhood events, probably won't surprise those of you here to see that people of color, low-income people, people in poor communities, as well as rural communities that
Yeah.
are poor in the U.S.,
Yeah.
white poverty tends to be rural,
Yeah.
and urban poverty tends to be people of color. But in both, you will, I think the cutoff, don't quote me, was something like 7. If you'd had more than 7 adverse childhood events, you're just
Yeah.
way
Oh,
up there on the scale. And
Yeah.
they go from everything from, you know, childhood sexual abuse, physical abuse, to the loss of a parent,
Yeah.
Yeah.
death of someone close in the family, divorce, living with family violence, living without the proper means to have basic needs, wondering if you're going to eat, wondering if you're going to be cold.
Yeah.
And so,
But Regina,
Yes.
Regina, I have to remind you though that we're having a conference in a
yes,
and we're giving away all of it. Well, not really. But I'm sure our listeners will, you know, they have got the taste of
Yes.
what this is very rich,
Yes.
and we have a lot more to share.
Yes.
You know, as you spoke about childhood trauma and wetting the bed, I've been collecting just the news reports from Jamaica on child abuse and so on. And I just a couple of months ago, I think, it came out. There's a woman who, actually it was last week, who a 2-year-old child, and the woman, unfortunately, she beat the child wet the bed. 2-year-old child, and the child was beaten until a little girl, and she died, beaten to death at 2 years old.
and I have to try
And
to stir
it
up compassion
is-
for the
it
unresolved
is-
trauma of the mother who
it
did
is.
that.
We have some stories, you know, that in Jamaica that we could talk about,
for days.
you know, so come to the conference and
Yes.
and
Yes.
hear some of
28th.
these things
April
April
28th.
28th.
And that will be a start.
for this
We want that to be
conversation.
the start
Yeah,
of the conversation.
right.
West Indian Social Club.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, West Indian Social Club,
Yes.
April 28th from 1 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Be there.
Yes, and admission is free with a gift item for an infant that will be distributed to pregnant rape victims in St. Thomas, Jamaica. Pregnant child rape victims. Thank you.